Are you ready to throw a party, but you're afraid you're gonna run out of food? I got you. Today, we're gonna talk about how much meat you need to buy per how many people come into your house. I'm gonna show you how to cook it and cook it fast. I'm talking about pulled pork and pulled brisket in only 5 hours. That's right, 5 hours on the smoker, great barbecue flavor. And I'm gonna give you a couple of different varieties of how you can serve up these dishes. So if you wanna throw a party this weekend, I got you one way. You wanna throw a party the next weekend, it'll be totally different. Let's get grilling. One of the first things people ask about when they have to serve a crowd is how much meat do I need to cook? I recommend a 4-ounce portion of cooked meat per person. This is what 4 ounces of pulled pork looks like. This is plenty for a single pulled pork sandwich, or you can get 2 to 4 tacos out of this if you use these smaller street taco tortillas. Doing that math is a little complicated though, because even though I have 4 ounces of cooked meat here, it didn't start out that way. When you cook pork and brisket, you lose about 40% of the weight, which means normally you would think a pound you would get 4 4-ounce servings. But no, you're actually gonna lose 40% of the weight, so you're really gonna get 2.3 servings per pound of raw meat. Let's say you're throwing a party for 15 people. What you're gonna do is divide that number by 2.3, which leaves you with 6.5. That's what you need, 6.5 pounds of raw, boneless or raw trimmed meat. Once you smoke that, that's gonna cook down and give you plenty to serve 15 people. So this pan right here is about 4 pounds cooked. This pan right here is also about 4 pounds cooked. So this pan could serve 15, this pan could serve 15. So right now I have a feast for 30 and we did it all in 5 hours. Now the trick to making this super fast and super easy is that we are not smoking a whole pork butt and we're not smoking a whole brisket. Nope, instead I like to cut them up into cubes, into like 2 to 3 inch cubes, and we're actually gonna smoke them in a pan. This makes the process faster because the portions of meat are smaller, so you're not trying to get that heat all the way to the center of a big 7-pound roast. Instead, the pieces are smaller, they're gonna cook faster, and they're all gonna be super juicy and tender and shreddable because we're cooking them in a pan and we're gonna add some broth to it during the second stage of the cook. Now for me, I do competitions. So I've got a lot of pork trimmings here. This is actually all the pork butt that I trim off of my competition pork. I just smoke the money muscle and like that lower fat cap section. So this is all the leftover pork. I vac seal it and I freeze it for days like today. Same thing, these are my brisket trimmings. These are the parts of the brisket that are still fantastic. They just weren't part of my competition brisket. Freeze them, save them for a day like today. Now, if you don't do competitions, that's okay. You can still do this whole process. Just buy a pork butt and cut it into cubes. Instead of smoking it whole, you're gonna cut it into cubes. Same thing with the brisket. And it takes so much pressure off of your brisket cook when you cook it this way, because people aren't expecting those perfect slices. They're not gonna judge you and take a slice on their finger and do the pull test and see if you cooked a perfect brisket, because honestly, it's hard to do that for a crowd because you have to time it just right for when everybody's there. If you slice it too early, it can dry out. There's just so many things that can make it complicated to where people are gonna judge you for maybe not having the most amazing brisket because they didn't get it immediately when it was sliced. If you go with this method, it's gonna be shredded, it's gonna be tender, it's gonna be delicious, guaranteed. Okay, I took all the meat out of the bags and I put them in pans. Now I'm using these aluminum half pans. They are foil pans. I just get mine on Amazon. You can find them at Sam's Club, Costco. You can use the full pans if you want. I just like the half pans. It gives me a little bit more control if I wanna rotate things on the grill, or if one pan cooks faster for some reason because it's on a different part of the grill. When putting the meat in the pan, a good rule of thumb is about 3 pounds of meat per half pan. And the reason for that is because I like it to be in kind of a single layer. If I put all this meat in one pan, we're basically just recreating a roast, which is what we're trying not to do. We're trying to thin it out, make the pieces smaller, make that surface area smaller so that everything cooks up faster. Also, another piece of note is when it comes to the brisket, I have trimmed the brisket so that the fat cap is still about 1/4 of an inch. I want some fat in here when I'm gonna shred it, but you don't want too much. So go ahead and trim away when you see too much excess fat, but other than that, these are ready for seasoning. Now, of course, for the brisket, I'm gonna go with my Girls Can Grill brisket rub. You can find this at so many different locations like Scheels, at Fleet Farm, a couple Ace Hardwares are starting to get them. You can also find them on my website, girlscangrill.com, and you can get them on Amazon, which means that you can get them in like 2 days or less, super fast. We're gonna use a generous amount, so I like to open the wide side. You wanna really coat this. I'm just sprinkling it in here and kind of giving it a toss. This is gonna help create the bark. Even though we're not smoking a whole brisket, we're still gonna get some bark out of this. Let's do this pan. So again, I'm just kind of covering the top. I would say the amount of rub I'm using for 3 pounds of meat is probably about 1/4 cup to 1/3 of a cup. I don't really measure, I'm just generously coating it all. Giving it a toss. After I flip it over, I just make sure that I hit it on the other side. Now you can actually do this part in advance. You could do this the night before and then go put it in the refrigerator, cover it up, put it in the fridge, and it's gonna kind of dry brine the meat, making it taste even more. All these flavors are really gonna infuse. So if you've got time, I definitely recommend doing that. Let's move on to the pork. So for the pork, we are going to use my pork rub. See how easy I make it for you guys? If we were doing chicken, we would use my chicken rub. Now you can use some of the brisket rub with the pork. That's actually really good because it's got that salt, pepper, garlic blend. The pork is definitely on the sweeter side, so I don't usually use my pork with my brisket, but sometimes I use pork on chicken. It's really good on chicken. Actually, I have a whole separate YouTube video where I season my chicken legs with my pork and chicken rub. You guys should check that out. Same process here. We're just coating it on all sides. Be generous. This is not overly salty, so don't think that I'm pouring a ton of salt on here. I'm not. It's got a good blend of a lot of different herbs and spices and sweeteners and chilies. So it's not just pure salt on here. It's not gonna be oversalted, I promise. In fact, we're actually gonna add more rub throughout the process. We're gonna add rub when it's in the pan with the broth, and we're gonna add more rub after we shred it. Lots of layers of flavor. Now, I'm gonna go fire up the Masterbuilt. Let's go outside. All right, today for this recipe, we're gonna be cooking this on my Masterbuilt XT. The reason for that is because I wanna get a lot of smoke charcoal flavor. You can cook this on any grill. You can cook this on a pellet grill, on your Ninja Flex Flame. It really doesn't matter. It's just whatever grill you have, whatever smoke level that you want. But you do wanna cook it over indirect heat, and we're gonna set the grill temperature to 275 degrees. Today, though, for our charcoal, we're gonna be using these B&B char logs. Let me open the bag and show you what char logs are in case you're not familiar with them. All right, guys, this is a char log. You can see it looks like a log, but it's got a hole in the middle, and that is for your perfect airflow. So it's compressed similar to a charcoal briquette, but it is a bigger chunk and it allows the airflow to circulate right through there. So I'm gonna fill some of these up right inside of my Masterbuilt so we can get cooking. One 15-pound bag fits perfectly inside. I've got the dial set to 275. I love this grill because it's digital, so it's like a pellet grill, but with the flavor of charcoal. I also like it because, as you can see, I've added some of the extra racks. We're cooking so much meat today. I'm gonna be using this top rack and this kind of second level rack so that we can fit all the meat inside. You could actually smoke even more on this, but I think 12 pounds is enough for us today. Okay, the grill's up to temp. It's just time to put these on the smoker. We've got the pork that's been seasoned and the brisket. Now we're just gonna let it cook until it reaches an internal temperature of about 150, 160 degrees. What I'm really looking for, though, more than temperature, is actually what it looks like, what the meat looks like. I wanna start to see a nice bark formed on it, so we'll come back and check on it in a couple hours. The meat's been on here for just over 90 minutes. You can see it has a beautiful bark, beautiful color. That's what I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and just test what the temperature is. 170, so that's fine for me. You might be at 150, you might be at 160, you might be at 170. What we're really looking for on this is color. I'm gonna close this down so I don't lose all my heat. And now, you can see there's actually quite a bit of liquid in here. I'm gonna add a little bit more. This is beef consomme. Just gonna put about half a can in this one, and then I'll use the other half of the can in the other one. I am going to add more brisket rub. Again, just to layer the flavors, that's all we're doing here. And then we're gonna cover this up with foil. Get it as secure as you can, because what we're kind of doing now is braising it. We're steaming it, we're keeping all that moisture in there, so it's gonna shred so beautifully. Do the other pan of brisket. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and rotate these pans. So this one was on the lower rack for the first half of the cook. I'm gonna put that on the upper rack and then put this one on the lower rack. And now we'll do the pork. With the pork, here's where you can really change things up. So we're gonna go sweet today because I'm gonna end up shredding this to make some barbecue pork sandwiches. So I'm starting with just a little bit of butter. I've got about a half a stick of butter here. I'm also going to add in some brown sugar, probably about a quarter cup or so. And then a drizzle of pure maple syrup, just a nice little drizzle across the top. And then more of that Girls Can Grill pork rub. I'd probably put like 2 tablespoons or so in there. And then we'll cover this up. Again, I'm rotating. I'm putting the pork that was on the bottom onto the top. Now with the pork, I went ahead and went sweet. We're doing some pulled pork barbecue sandwiches with barbecue sauce, so I added the sweet component. But if you wanted to go savory, what I like to do is sometimes add in some diced onion, a can of green chilies, and then I would still use my pork rub, but you could also add in taco seasoning. If you want to mix up the liquid, you could use some orange juice, like if you want to turn this into carnitas. With pork, I go really versatile. I'll go sweet or I'll go super savory. With brisket, I tend to stay on the savory side. I don't go sweet, so I just like beef broth and my brisket rub. In the meantime, we're going to go back inside and work on some coleslaw and some taco toppings. Now that the meat is in the final stage of cooking, it's a perfect time to pull everything else together. If you're going to make sides like mac and cheese, baked beans, refried beans, whatever, now's a great time to do that. But also, now's a great time to put together everything that we're going to do for the toppings that go with the meat. So we're going to start with the pork. For the pork, like I said, we're going to do some barbecue pork sandwiches. So I'm going to make coleslaw. The way I make my coleslaw is you want to make the dressing first. And I like to use Miracle Whip because it's a little bit tangy and coleslaw sauce is already a little bit tangy. So that's perfect. I've got a tablespoon of sugar because I do like a little sweetness, and a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. That's the vinegar that I like to go with when I'm making coleslaw. You can use white vinegar also, but I like the sweetness of apple cider vinegar, especially with pork. Now for the seasonings, coleslaw almost always has celery seed, so I have a half a teaspoon here. But I've got a tip for you. If you don't make coleslaw very often and you don't want to buy a whole jar of celery seed, but you do like to eat celery, just go ahead and take the tops of the celery, the leaves themselves, and dice them up really fine and put those in your coleslaw, and that's going to give you that celery flavor without you having to buy a bottle of celery seeds. And then I've also got some salt and pepper in here. So I am just mixing all of this together. As you can see, we've got our coleslaw mix. Too easy, right? Most of those ingredients you probably have except for that celery seed. Now, the other shortcut, there's no need to shred your own cabbage anymore. They make it in a bag. This is a 14-ounce bag, which is about 7 cups, so that's perfect. Dump that right into your dressing. I do like to get the coleslaw mix that has some carrots already mixed in. I don't get the one with red cabbage. Feel free to do that if you want to, but it ends up turning your dressing like purple, so it makes your whole coleslaw purple. So I just like to use the green cabbage. Give this a good coat. And as this sits in the refrigerator, the cabbage is actually going to like wilt and soften a little bit, and this will be great. Now for the tacos, as we talked about, we're gonna stretch those out as well. I like using these flour tortillas, but they're the street taco size, so they're really small. Now, you could go all out and do shredded cheese and shredded lettuce and diced tomatoes and like all the gringo toppings that you want. But honestly, keep it simple for yourself. Just minimize the options, but they're still gonna be really great options. We're gonna do kind of a traditional mix that you're gonna get in a standard street taco shop. It's just a combination of diced white onion, diced jalapeno, and some cilantro. Now, if you don't like cilantro, leave it out or use parsley instead, whatever you prefer. But you're gonna take that onion, put it in the bowl. I usually do 1 whole onion to 1 to 2 jalapenos to about a quarter cup to a half a cup of cilantro. And you just mix all this together. Simple as that. And then the only other thing that I put out are limes and maybe some hot sauce. So that's it for your taco bar. You've got that shredded brisket. You've got this great topping. People can grab a squeeze of lime and put that right on. Serving up the crowd is that easy. I find if you have too many toppings, it slows down the line because people are like, well, do I want sour cream? Do I want guacamole? Do I want salsa? Like if you have too many things, it just makes things slow and cluttered. Keep it simple, keep it delicious. All right, let's check on the meat. What I am looking for is for it to be fork tender, which this Absolutely is. Oh my goodness. Even the big pieces. Now for curiosity's sake, let's go ahead and probe this. Right over 205. That's usually the magic mark. Let's check on the brisket. This is still giving me a little bit of resistance, a little bit of tug. You can see that's still hard. We're actually gonna let this continue to cook. Let's go ahead and take the pork off. Let's check on the brisket. The pork took about 2 hours in the braising liquid. And the brisket is gonna take about 3 hours. But yeah, look at this now, so much better. I mean, now it just pulls apart so easily with a fork. That's exactly what we're looking for. And if I take my thermometer to it, get a big piece here, you can see we're about the 206 range. We were at a similar range earlier, but it just didn't shred as beautifully as this is doing right now. Let's take this inside and finish it up. All right, it's time to wrap up this feast. I've got all the meat off the smoker. Just as a reminder, both of these were on for about an hour and 45 minutes to get that bark creation, and then we braised them both. Once we braised them, the pork took about 2 hours to get shreddable, and the brisket took about 3 hours to get shreddable. I'm not really going for temperature, I am going for like shreddability. So now let me show you what I'm gonna do next to make this ready. You could serve it just like this if you want to. Have at it, it's your party. But what I wanna do is shred this. So I'm actually using these Hey Girl Hey Pitmaster gloves. I love these because this meat is really hot right now. It's like 200 degrees and the liquid is really hot too, but I'm not feeling a thing. So what I like to do, I don't like to shred it in the same pan because multiple reasons. There's so much liquid in here and some of that liquid is fat. And I don't want this meat to become soggy and mushy. I just want it to be shredded. So we're gonna shred it into another pan. I mean, you guys can see how easily this is happening, right? Incredible. We're gonna shred it into another pan. And then if I need to add more liquid back to it, I will. Couple of tips as I'm doing this. If your party is right away, then obviously you can serve this right away. If your party is not right away, you need to find a way to keep this warm. So you can keep it warm in your oven on the lowest temperature for a little while. Usually the lowest temperature in ovens is like 170, maybe 180. So you want to be cautious with that because that is going to make the meat continue to cook, which can dry it out. So I would do that for 1, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. But if it starts to dry out, you're going to want to add some more liquid to the meat. You can just put in some more beef broth, or you can save some of these drippings and then add that. Another option is that you can put it in a crock pot. You can just put it in a slow cooker on the lowest setting possible, and that will help keep it warm too. Or you can even make this in advance. Keep it in the freezer, keep it in the refrigerator, and then warm it up when it's time for your party. It is a little bit more challenging to warm. You don't want to just microwave it because that'll dry it out. I like to use a sous vide to bring it back up to like 145 or so degrees. That takes a little while and a little finesse. So I really do like to just make a day of. One thing you could do though is actually cook it up on a griddle top to reheat it, and then it gets like charred, crispy bits and edges, especially with the pork. If you want to do carnitas, that is the way to go. Depending on how thin you shred this will also depend on how well you can make this spread. Like if you have your pieces pretty big, then people are going to take big chunks of meat. If you want this to go further, make sure that you shred it into smaller pieces. It looks really good. I'm gonna give this a taste. I am gonna give it a little bit more seasoning because, as I'm always telling you guys, I like to do things in layers. This time though, I'm gonna open the small end because I don't wanna overdo it. It does have good flavor already. I just wanna give it that extra little saltiness, that extra little pop. Awesome. That brisket is ready for sandwiches or tacos or however you want to serve it up. Let's do the pork. Now we're going to shred up the pork. Same process. I'm just moving it over to another pan. And it shreds beautifully. You get the idea, right? So think about how much time we just saved. Usually a pork butt can easily take 7, 8, even 10 hours to smoke a whole pork butt roast. We smoked this, which is a whole pork butt roast, but we cut it up and we smoked it in 4 hours. With a brisket, we smoked that brisket in 5 hours. Usually briskets take like 12 hours or more. Now we were smoking at a higher temperature at 275 degrees, so that helps speed it up too. But we're not trying to slave away at the barbecue for this. If you've got a party going on, you've got enough on your plate to take care of everything else, making sure the house is clean and all that good stuff. You don't want to be stuck at the grill all day long, unless that's your hiding spot, which I'll be honest, sometimes for me it is. Just like the brisket, you want to give it a taste. And to me, same thing for that added pop, just a little bit more fresh pork rub, tossed right in there. And this is where you could also add your barbecue sauce if you want to. Let me show you the different ways that you could serve this up. If you want to do barbecue sandwiches, simply let them add meat to their bun. And some people aren't even going to add a whole 4 ounces. So that's where the average comes in. Some people may only do 2 ounces. Some people may do 3. Some people may do 6. You can also build these sandwiches in advance for everybody if you want to. That's perfectly fine. I like to put some of this coleslaw right on top. It just makes it something special. You can put barbecue sauce on here too if you want. And there you go. Who is going to complain about that at a party? That's awesome. So with this pan right here, with the 6.5 pounds of pork, we can easily get 15 to 16 sandwiches just like this for your party. Now let's switch things over to tacos. This is where the meat can really spread out. Because we're using these smaller tortillas, you're only gonna get like 1 to 2 ounces of meat on here. And then we're gonna take this onion jalapeno cilantro relish that we made with a little twist of lime. And most people are going to want more than one. So right here, we've maybe used up 3 ounces of meat. So look at that. That is a perfect plate, especially if you've got all the other sides going on. With this shredded meat, we're going to get 40 to 45 tacos out of this. So again, easily serving 15 people where everybody gets 3 tacos a piece. Some people get 2, some people get 4, but plenty to serve 15. That's it, guys. I hope I've given you a little bit more confidence to cook for a crowd. You now know the numbers. You know how much meat to buy. You know how to cook it. You know a variety of different ways how you can serve it up, mix and match. So one party one weekend is different from a party the next weekend using the same kind of protein. You guys got this. I hope you have a blast at your next party. If you want to see more recipe videos, be sure to check out this one.